Hi, everybody. Welcome to section 2.7. We're going to be talking about percent of change. So you see percent of change everywhere out in the world, like when there's a sale, right? Something might be 15% off. Or if you work in a store, there might be a 20% markup. It's probably higher than that. So percent of change itself is the ratio of the change in the amount to the original amount. Notice the word ratio in there. We've been talking about ratios and proportions. So one of the ways we can figure these problems out is to set up a ratio or a proportion. So percent of increase would be when the new amount is greater than the original. And percent of decrease is when your new amount is smaller than the original. So a percent of decrease might be when something is on sale. A percent of increase might be if you're reselling something to somebody else and you want to make some extra money on it. You might have a increase from what you paid for it or your original price. So steps for finding the percent of change, whether it's an increase or decrease, it doesn't matter. And this is what we're going to do, is we're going to solve problems using percent of change. So first thing you should do is decide if it's a decrease or an increase. I mean, they might tell you it's on sale. They might tell you it's sales tax. If I have a 6% Michigan sales tax, is that a percent of increase or a percent of decrease? It would be increase, right? They'd be adding more money onto what we have to pay because that's the sales tax for the state. After that, find the difference in the amounts. So subtraction is the difference. And last but not least, set up an equation. Now we could make this into a percent or into a proportion. We're actually going to talk about that in a second, but we could do it a little bit differently, but I think this is the easiest way. Your final answer, your percent of change, whether it's increase or decrease, is equal to the difference in the amount, so your subtraction problem, over the original, and then times that by 100. It's almost like figuring out a percentage for your a test grade. Your amount divided by the total times 100. So the difference divided by the original, multiply that one by 100 to change it into a percentage. So let's do a quick problem here. We have got information. For number one, it says the original price is 20. Original is 20. The final is 23. You can think of this as money if you want to. It says to decide if whether each is a percent of change, increase or decrease, then find the percent of change. So if my original is 20 and my final is 23, is that an increase or a decrease? It went up, right? Increased. So the second step, it said to find the difference in the amount. So we take a 23 minus 20. What was the increase? 3. And then we're going to set ourselves up that equation. So the percent equals the difference, 3, over the original. What is the original? Not 23, right? Use your original. Times that by 100. And we will get ourselves a percent of change. I don't even know the answer to this one. I better check. You do the math. Tell me if I'm right. I believe it's going to be 15. 3 divided by 20 times 100. 15% increase. It's 0.15 before you times by 100. We turn that into a percentage. So number 2, is number 2 an increase or a decrease? Or if our original is 25, our final 17? Obviously, it's a decrease, right? What's our difference? It doesn't matter what order we do it. We just want to know, how did the price change? So really, we're taking the absolute value and we subtract. It doesn't matter if it was increase or decrease because we already made that decision. So that should be an 8. So we're going to set ourselves up an equation. The difference, 8, over the original amount. Remember, the original amount in this case was the higher price, or higher value, 25, times that by 100. So what will your percent of decrease be? Should be 32% decrease. Please notice how I'm showing my work. I would love to have you show your work the same way. We've got another option where we can, when we're given a word problem, it's sometimes easier to set up a proportion. So proportion would be change over original, which we just did, equals percent over 100. Technically, this is the same setup, just written as a proportion instead of as an equation. Change over original equals percent over 100. You could use this in those last problems that we did if you wanted to as well. You may need to do a little bit of expressions, some work with expressions for your change or your original. Some of these problems, when they're word problems, get a little bit, don't give you a ton of information. Once you do that, we all know we solve a proportion by cross multiplying. And then last but not least, sometimes people just put a box around the answer and don't think about it. Make sure that your answer makes sense. You may need to, if you had to use an expression, add or subtract, think about it, decide. Right? So let's do an example. A recent increase in tuition at SC4 was 5.4%. If the original cost is $8,427 per year, find the new cost per year. So if we're going to go to that change over original, equals percent over 100. Let's decide where we're going to put stuff. An increase, first of all, we know that tuition went up, right? The recent increase in tuition was 5.4%. So we're going to just put that right in there. We're not going to do any changing. So I'm going to put my 5.4%. This is always a 100. So we've got a change in an original. If the original cost is $8,427 per year, find the new cost per year. This is kind of shouting at us where that goes. 8,427. Find the new cost. Let's find how the change and then we can decide. So let's put an X there. That's what we're looking for. So go ahead and cross multiply. You end up with a 100X. That should be equal to, 45,505.8. You should really double check that math for me. So divide both sides by 100 because that's how we solve a one-step equation. So X equals $455.06, right? If that decimal place, we don't usually have 5.8 cents. So 6 cents, if we round that, that 8 says that the 5 goes up. So that was the change in tuition, right? Change is always in this top left spot. So if the tuition change was $455.06 and it was an increase in tuition, it says to find the new cost. So new tuition, we're not done with this problem, right? It wouldn't even make sense if we said our new tuition was $455.06 because it originally was $8,427. If it increased, are we going to add or subtract? So once we do that addition problem, we will have our new tuition rate, which should be $8,882.06. So we had to do that adding at the end because we didn't know the new tuition. We only knew what the amount of increase was. So these word problems make you think a little bit, make you set things up. So let's talk about Samantha buying a new, there we go. Let's skip that one. Let's go to number 5. Sorry. Samantha's buying a new softball glove. It costs $149.99. Find the total cost, including 6% sales tax. So we can do our same Change over original equals percent over 100. Is sales tax a percent of increase or decrease? So are we going to have to add or subtract? So we need to make ourselves a little note. It says to find the total cost. So we know a couple things in here. We know the percent, right? What's the sales tax? 6%. We know the softball glove, the original price before we start putting any sales tax on it is $149.99. We do not know how much the sales tax will be. So we've got ourselves an X in that change spot. We can go ahead and cross multiply. We get 100X. That should be equal to 899.94. I really should use a calculator. Divide by 100. So, oh, this one's interesting. 8.9994. That makes no sense in money. What does 8.9994 mean in money? 899.9. That would be $9 exactly, right? They always round. So that means it's going to cost $9 in sales tax. What will her total cost, including the sales tax, be? So her total cost should be her original $149.99. Since we said it was an increase, we knew that we were going to add that $9, and she'll end up having to pay $158.99. Let's skip this one. I actually have that blank in there for what the frame costs because we're going to decide that ourselves. So here's what I would like you to tell me about. What is the proportion you can use to solve a percentage word problem? I just wrote it out a couple times. And find the percent of increase. If the original price was $36 and the final price that you ended up paying for whatever reason was $42, what is the percent of increase? That's it for section 2.7. Have a great day. We'll see you next time.